these conventions, these campouts, these get-togethers, these roundies, I'm there. You know, it's there where you establish, they're talking about connection. Connection is the opposite of addiction. And, you know, a couple of people ask me, you know, like, how do you get to be so well known and everything? Because I'm out of my isolation these days, guys. I'm not in that prison of addiction no more. You know, I've overcome it. I've accepted it. I've accepted my past. I've made my amends. You know, I'm doing my best to live a life free of the carnage of addiction. You know, I'm an addict. I'm always going to be an addict because when I stray away from the rooms of recovery, when I don't come to these functions, I seem to get sick real quick. You know, my response time gets to zero. You know, all these little things. You start to notice the little things, and they add up like a pebble effect. You know, they add up, and if you don't deal with it quickly, man, something's going to fire that off, and you're gonna like relapse, like have an emotional relapse. You know, because my recovery is a lot more than just the use of drugs and alcohol or any mind-altering substance anymore. My recovery is about becoming a better person. You know, doing the next right thing and doing things that my future self and my future generations will be grateful for. You know, they'll be thankful for. And I never used to live that way, man. You know, I've done about 16 years in prison for violent crimes, for domestic violence, you know, second degree assault, weapons charges, and I run the men's domestic violence program for my tribe. You know, they offer me this job, you know, because outside organizations are going to see your turnaround that you do in your life. You know, they're watching. And you know, when they approached me, you know, I didn't even apply for it. They approached me, my addict voice tried to talk them out of it. My addict voice tried to tell me, you're not good enough. You know, you can't do this. But I'll tell you what, I've been doing it for over about 2 years now, and I've graduated over 50 men of that program, and they've all had something great to say. And all I do is share my personal experience, strength, and hope with them. You know, how I do it. You know, and it might not always work for them. You know, we get a lot of them because I sat in those groups on the other side of that desk for many years, and I didn't learn a goddamn thing because I wasn't ready. You know, a lot of people, they come to this program and they're not ready, but they're trying. And that's all you got to do. That's all you need to do is to be a member of this desire. It's a desire, and you are a member when you say you are, right? I love it in meetings when people, when they get involved with that, are, you know, all that. You know, I always replay that serenity prayer in my head throughout the day. You know, I got these readings to my head throughout the day. And, you know, it's not because of my ego that I remember them and I share them with you. It's because I live by these words, you know, by the steps. And, you know, sponsorship. I got a home group, the Res Group of Narcotics Anonymous. And I fought very hard to keep that meeting going because I started it right before COVID. Then COVID hit and they wanted to take our meeting spot away, but I fought to keep that meeting going through COVID. And I sat there many nights by myself, you know, just hoping for somebody to show up. Sure enough, one person showed up. Then another person showed up. And then within the last month, I don't know how, but word is getting out what we're doing, man. And we have been bursting at the seams for the last month. People are standing in the hallway trying to get their recovery on. You know, so, you know, it's like my dream come true. You know, and I'm seeing family members show up in here too because I had to make like that ultimate sacrifice if I was to survive. And, you know, that was to change people, places, and things. And I know in Ishinabe we got strong family values, but I had to walk away from like 90% of my family. And I had to love them from the other side of the reservation. Because I got clean in the community where I was the illest. You know, it was just God's plan for me. My plan was to go away and, you know, go to a sober house, get a job in the city, start my life over. But it didn't work that way because an addict with a plan, you know, is a bad idea, right? So it didn't work out that way. And I didn't have no idea about what surrendering the outcome and trusting the process was and all this stuff. You know, but that plan fell through. You know, I attended Four Winds Treatment Center. You know, I 3 days home by myself, detoxing, going through it, you know, shaky legs, shitting myself, and, you know, just that ugliness of the detox, man. And, you know, that 3 days, I knew I was going to make it. I knew there was no way, but, you know, through social media, you know, I was watching my cousin on social media, and she was bragging, like, I got 90 days clean. And I think she was about 6 months when I was struggling, when I was at my rock bottom. And I sent her a message. And I said, how do you do it? You know, because I know there's little movements. There's a little movement starting in my neighborhood called Sober Squad. And I've seen these guys around. I never met them before in my life. You know, they're a younger generation than I was. Because I'm one of them older, you know, deadly uncles, man, that's still alive. All my deadly uncles are gone. All my heroes are gone, man. Everybody I used to party with, they're all gone. And, you know, I kind of suffer from survivor's guilt sometimes. You know, I sit here and wonder why me. But then when I come to this shit, and I come to these functions, man, I know why me. I know why God, Creator, threw the towel back at me when I chucked it at him, man, because I'm alive today. It's because of y'all. Where was I at? Oh, what was that? Oh, the bird when I started Sober Squad. All right, and you know, so I reached out to my cousin, and you know, she had about 6 months, and I asked her how she do it, and she just sent me back 2 words. She said Sober Squad, and I said, hell with that. Nope. And see these guys in my neighborhood jumping and praying. That wasn't for me. But my phone rang about 15 minutes after I hung up with her, after I shot her that message, and it was from a guy that I'd never met before. And he asked me my address. And he came over, he knocked on my door, I let him in, and you know, he just asked me how I was doing, and you know, bumped me a couple smokes and said he'll pick me up for a meeting later. And he did. And I went to my first ever Walleye meeting. And they were in there drumming. And I just sat in the corner because I was, you know, I was ashamed. I wasn't pure. I was dirty. You know, that's how I felt. You know, that I wasn't good enough to ever, you know, sit at that drum or to dance in the arena or participate in ceremonies. You know, but I did. You know, throughout my entire life, my papa, you know, he was teaching me all these things, naming ceremonies. And when he passed, that seems like when I went down and I hit my rock bottom. You know, I used to speak Ojibwe, kind of. You know, and when my papa passed, I kind of quit practicing it too, along with all my ceremonies. But they're all still in here. You know, I just gotta reach in there, dig them and practice them. You know, they're ingrained in all of us. You know, it's in our DNA. It's in there. It's in our Department of Natural Research. Yeah, but it's in our DNA, man. And you know what? That's what I really love about our spirits, man. When I'm in this program, I've been in my clean date is 3/17/2018. I just celebrated 7 years. Yeah! I carry one hell of a message, you know, because I'm going through the toughest year of my life, guys. You know, I've been through the depression. I've been through the mental health, you know, the mental illnesses. And I'm still going through it, man. I lost a leg this year. I started dialysis this year. And you know what? I'm still sitting up here saying, F yeah. You know, I'm alive today. I'm happy today. I'm not crabby today. I can't even remember the last time I woke up crabby because I'm so grateful today. All these experiences, all these ugly experiences has got me closer to God. I couldn't even say the word God 6 months ago. It took me 6 years to actually just say the word God. You know, it's just a word. It's not a big deal. You know, and you know what that shows me? That shows that I'm growing. You know, I'm becoming more tolerant. You know, I don't have to show up to every single argument that I'm invited to today. I don't have to be right all the time. You know, I can just sit back and accept life, and it makes it manageable. When I'm going through some issues, I can talk about it. It makes it manageable. When I succeed, I talk about it. Makes it manageable. When I'm struggling, I go find a newcomer. Makes my life manageable. Can I explain it? No! Do I want to know how it works? No! I got how it works all up here too, guys. You know, I really haven't seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed on the path. Those who cannot recover are people that cannot or will not completely if there's an award for making mistakes in life, I'm sure that we can all win one of them. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of them. And we use those awards today, those mistaken awards, as my power today, as my drive today. I just do everything the opposite that I used to do, and it makes life manageable. You know, I'm not walking around wondering who hates me anymore. You know, I love everybody. You know, I've learned to love myself. You know, I'm a grandpa, I'm an uncle, you know, and, you know, I try to show my kids. My oldest son just celebrated 2 years, and he's, that's like leading by example, because I sat here, we were supposed to go to treatment together and do all this together, like, yeah, son, let's do this, and the day came to go to treatment, we got in a physical fight. You know, and I went to treatment anyway, just to show them that, yeah, we can do it. Did I graduate treatment? No, I have never graduated a treatment. I left treatment early. This is where I go with that story. I left treatment early and I sat down on my couch. When I got home and I looked around, and you know, I thought that I made the biggest mistake of my life, you know, leaving treatment, and you know, I thought that I was gonna fall back in my old ways, but I picked up that 1,000-pound phone, and I called my neighbor, Colin. Did he even ask me if I left treatment? No. He picked me up for a meeting, we went to a meeting. The next day I went to like 3 or 4. Then for the whole month I went to about 3 or 4 meetings. That's where I needed to be, because that's where I heard that meeting makers make it, and I wanted to make it. I was ready. You know, I was 105 pounds. My feet were rotting off. They were the size of footballs. And I was pretty sick. My A1C of diabetes was 14.5. That is death. I used to average 280 pounds. Within 2 years, I was 105 pounds. And so I've eaten a whole nother human, you know, since I've been in recovery. And within the 2 years I did. You know, that's all we got. Tell everybody, eat up, man. Eat all you want, you know, because we do. We can get healthy after. Just eat up here. You know, because I was skin and bones, you know, and I thought I was at a point of no return. And, you know, because I see myself as one of the unmanageable ones that clean up in our neighborhood. Because I was one of those drunks that pull up at your house 3 o'clock in the morning, blasting away in Jennings. And if you didn't come out and party with me, I would do a couple of donuts in your grass and leave. You know, and rev it up. You know, I learned all this from my deadly heroes, you know, my uncles. And, you know, I was really sad when one of them passed away. Because I held major resentments against him. He crashed into my dad, and my dad was pretty old, and my dad ended up living out his life in a nursing home. He wasn't able to recuperate, you know, it would have been painful for him, so, you know, then my uncle went to prison, so I didn't have a chance to like talk to him face to face. But what I did one night is I sat down and I put pen to paper, and I was ready to write him a letter and tell him how I felt, because, you know, I was very upset with him, and I wanted him to suffer. And that's, you know, that's how sick, you know, it was making me. He got out of prison, and, you know, even though how close we were, we didn't talk. He found out that I was on sober train, and, you know, I think he just respected my decision, which is good, because a lot of people don't. And, you know, Creator got tired of him messing up and wound up taking him. But I was working down in St. Paul at Native American Treatment Center. And I just got home and I got the phone call like, hey, your uncle passed away. And, you know, usually when I got that news, that process of grief, first thing is anger, you know, blame, pointing fingers, and, you know, you want the whole world to feel bad like you. And when I got the news, the feeling wasn't there. You know, I didn't get mad, I didn't get upset, and I was confused. I didn't know how to feel. I called my sponsor. Hey, sponsor, man, you know, this just happened, and I'm not mad. What did you do to me? Oh, that's a program with power of God working through you. You know, I didn't understand it. You know, and two days later, I'm driving down the road and this Hank Williams Jr. song comes on. I can't remember the name. It'll come to me in a minute. But that song came on and I pulled over and I cried. And something about this program coming into working the steps and everything, you learn how to process your emotions. You're not fueled by anger anymore. You can stop and think, yes, I feel like a little pansy sometimes, but it's worth it. I don't have to walk around pissed off at the world anymore, man. I am caring, I'm loving. Kids like me, dogs let me pet them. It's just all the little things that we look over that we took for granted before. I'm alive today because Creator had a plan for me. Randell's plan did not work. Randell's way of things does not work. The second I turn it over and I let go and I let God, seems to be okay. It's like coming up here and I hear there's a free roundup. I'm there. I spend all my money traveling, just carrying a message. Me and my buddy Colin just had a great trip to Oklahoma. I go to the Dakotas because through COVID, when they shut down our meetings, we did what a lot of people do. We turned online. And I started a group called Zooming Towards Recovery and Daily Morning Meds, which was 2 meetings every day, 365 days a year. But it's hard to find people to commit to those. I ran that meeting for 2 years by myself, and I got tired. We burned out. And everybody tells me you gotta settle down. You settle down. No, when I settle down, I get sick. I gotta be here. I gotta come out here and make these connections. I gotta meet these people. And I have met the most amazing people in this program. I love hugging people. And I just met my cousin just got out of prison. And I took her to her first meeting Thursday night. And we were sitting in the truck when I was dropping her off at home. And she made me so proud. She said, I'm trying something new. I said, what's that? She goes, I'm hugging everybody when I leave them. And that is cool because when you're hugging, you're making a connection. And there is something about a 20-second hug, scientifically proven.
Oxytocin, bro.
A hug. And, I've had this experience, when my early recovery, I was only about a month clean, and we went down to St. Paul, Dale Street, to collect this thing called Capture the Flag. It's like a fellowship thing. And there's like 150 people in this meeting. And they take about an hour before the meeting to welcome the newcomer, and I happen to be a newcomer that day. And they hug. Every single person hugs the newcomer. So they have a huge line of about 150 people just waking up. Love you. Oh, I hate that. I had boundaries. Huge boundaries. If you cared about me, or if you loved me, I was pushing you away. Didn't know it at the time, but don't step into my circle. It is ugly. And I pushed everybody away. But I was coming through this line, and I was through about number 50, and there's a big woman. She was like, oh. By that time I was kind of just tired, All right, so I went on in there. No, I'm just kidding. Get the newcomers that never made it out of there, right? I can hear it in the whoo! But I'm hugging this woman, and after 10 seconds, I let go, and gave a pat on the back. She let go, no, she squeezed tighter. Okay, so I grabbed back down. And after about 15 seconds, I gave a pat on the back again. She didn't let go. So I hung on again, and you know what? The next 5 seconds, man, I was home. There's something about you finding these rooms, their love, that you might not have ever experienced as a kid or as a human, as your entire life. You're going to find people in this program that fill the void of your aunties, uncles, your mamas. They're your family now. They love you, and that's what family's all about, is love and care and taking care of one another, supporting, lifting each other up, telling y'all, I love you. I couldn't tell that. I couldn't say that at all. I love you. You know, when's the last time you ever told, you're a good boy? You're a good girl. Good baby, good person. You're a good person. You know, you can say that today and mean these things. You know, I say that to my kids. You know, I was proud of that. You know, my parents did the best they could with what they got. You know, they're part of the relocation program. I got to grow up in San Francisco. You know, just wild as up there as is here. You know, it's everywhere. You know, no matter where I went, man, I always found cool kids. You know, but you know, my parents are hard workers. You know, and they did the best as they could, man. But they were alcoholics, and I grew up with domestic violence, which I never knew was trauma at the time. I deal with a lot of trauma. Waking up to a bloody mess, waking up to police, waking up in the middle of the night, saying, asking you if you want to go to the hotel with your father. You know, who do you want to be here in the morning? You know, like, you don't tell that to a kid. Who do you want to be here living in the morning? You know, while your parents are sitting there bloody and drunk and stuff. That's trauma. You know, I've never seen that and I never noticed that, you know, but I carried that on in my adult years. I was an abuser. I've never been in a healthy relationship. I'm 7 years clean and I'm scared shitless to even try one. You know, because I don't know if I can be a good person. You know, I'm learning. I'm fear. I've never been here before. Have I ever done this before? No. But do I love carrying a message? Yes. You know, I got something to share, man, and if my message can help one person, touch one newcomer, or even an experienced member, because that's what we do, man, when we pray. When we open our ceremonies up and we pray for the still struggling addict, I'm praying for the ones that are succeeding too. We need prayers. Because without it, man, there's no way I could be where I'm at. There's no way I could be here. This is God doing for me what I can't do for myself, is to sit here and talk to y'all. Randell can't do it. Randell's scared. But when I let God and I let Creator, whatever, flow through me, man, I accomplish anything. You know, every time somebody asks me to be a service, yes. You know, don't be a no man. Yes man. Be a yes man. Watch that movie again. You know, see what he's doing, man. Be a yes man. You know, it's like you can get with this and you can get with that. Man, I choose recovery because, man, without this, if I don't keep recovery going on top of everything, nothing else is possible. So you'll always find me in meetings. I still go to at least one meeting a day. You know, and I'm 7 years in. You know, I still will because that's where I need to be. That's where I learned to live. You know, just by listening, I guess I got to surround myself with other addicts. You know, people that are in recovery and people with more recovery than me because they got what I need. You know, I didn't know my first 2 years in this program, you know, I was doing everything to avoid working on myself. I was out feeding the homeless, bringing wood down to the woodless camps, to the homeless camps, and protecting the water. You know, joining all these organizations, but I was doing everything to avoid working on this. And I'll tell you what, when after about 2 years, when I sat up there and I got my black tag, no, I was 18 months, and I was 18-month tag, and man, this is pretty easy, and the red flag came up. So I started shopping around, and I messed up, and I went and got a sponsor, and went through the steps with them, and I'll tell you what, man, true freedom from addiction. I noticed my life got a lot better after I completed the steps and I started sponsoring. My sponsor, I got about 4 guys that keep in good contact with me, man. They're doing all right. You know, I'm proud of that because I started off wanting to save the world. I wanted the whole world to feel what I felt. Just like when I'm feeling bad, I want everybody to feel bad. You know? But you know, I started off wanting to clean up the whole world, and I joined Sober Squad, and we were going around doing all these fellowships, all these presentations and everything, and I wasn't working on myself. You know? So, you know, when I finally decided to stop doing all that stuff and work on myself, man, you know, just things got good. You know, not you know, all around, but in my head. You know, but then, you know, that's all I did was manifest recovery for the first 5 years, and I'm really glad I did. Because if I didn't, and these issues came up, see, because my kidneys failed, I found out I was diabetic when I was 30. I was drinking and drugging, I didn't do nothing about it until I got clean when I was 42. So that's 12 years of untreated diabetes, probably more than that. That's why I diabetic far before 30, but, you know, that's untreated. So when I came into the recovery and I got my diabetes all under control and everything, my kidneys decided to continue to decline. And I thought I had about 3 years to prep and get ready, but no, it happened right away, and I had to adjust my life. And I'll tell you what, you can live life on dialysis. I seen a couple of friends of mine that just had meltdowns when they found out they're just beginning kidney process. And you got some time, you can adjust, you can get ready. But I'll tell you what, you gotta be strong up here. Because if I didn't have this program, I didn't have everybody in it, man, there's no way I could have made it through this year the way I did. Everybody's asking me, how do you keep a smile on your face going through all the crap you go through? My sponsor said I have to keep a good attitude. And ever since my sponsor told me that, I don't, when I catch myself starting to get crabby, I can self-correct. I can take a step back, breathe, focus, reassess the situation, and go at it at a different path. That's simple. It's that simple. Instead of blowing up and having the power and control over everything, I don't have to do that no more. If people go out and make mistakes, I hope to survive. It's tough because you either find these roads of recovery or you equal death. And we have lost so many. It is, it's kind of like nobody in life should go through, how many people that we've lost, in our small communities. And it's really touching because these small communities, there's only, the funerals are the only time that we come together anymore, and it shouldn't be that way. It's my prayers that I can get my family back, and we can enjoy Christmases and Thanksgiving and birthdays, graduations. I miss all that. And it's my goal to get that back someday. And, that's just us as pillars in our family. They think that just because we're clean and we're sober, that we can handle everything. We can't. We're not perfect. They throw a lot of responsibilities at us before we're ready. We're healing. It takes time, man. There's no rush to recovery. I still show, but I'm glad I did. I wish I found out about it a long time ago, but it would have deprived me of a lot of experience. I'm still building that relationship with God, with Creator. I wake up and I'm thankful for Him every day, and I read a meditation, but there's more. I got a pipe that I got to start using more. I only bring it to funerals a couple times. I don't know why, but I was gifted this pipe through active addiction. I was given my name in active addiction, and my wife told me that I was here to help people. And I never seen when I went on a couple of years ago, I forgot all about it, but my name was Foster County Elbow. I'm the light, I'm the glow on the path. And I'm kind of looking at that in a recovery basis. I can lead somebody to the path, but you can't walk it. It's like leading a horse to water. Letting them drink. I do that. I try to get people to meetings. I do the next right thing. My phone's on 24/7. I sponsor. I just do my best to get back to this program that is so freely given to me, and that is freedom to change and to become an acceptable, responsible, productive members of society. I make my events in my community. Like when they have the Thanksgiving turkey giveaway. I'm out there with my little turkey hat and, just put myself out there, in my face in the community that, hey, we can change. And people see it. People see it. And, they're proud of you, but you gotta be proud of yourself. You gotta do it for yourself. Can't do this for nobody else and not do it. You get hooked on this, man. You start to feel good, and you're just driving 3 hours to a camp out, no problem. I worked 3 years into this program to get my license, man, and since I got it, you just see me everywhere. I'm just, even when I got my leg cut off, man, I was out there in a wheelchair, just still out representing recovery. We got it. It's you need people like me. Hey, you got people like me, right? There's nothing greater than for me in this program than to watch people flourish, to watch the spirits awaken, to watch them just start to smile genuinely. I had to learn to smile twice because I had a whole messed up grill, and for the first 5 years I had to smile like this. Then I got my teeth. I got it all fixed, and with my teeth I was still, I was all shy and everyone wants my face, You know, it's okay today, man. You can laugh today, you can smile today, you can be happy today. And if somebody judges you, don't worry about it, man. They're just having a bad day. Nothing personal. You know, that's me. I used to take everything personal. Everything was about me. It's not anymore.
Hey, no.
It's not anymore. It's good today. You know, life is good today. And all I do is do what's the right thing for my human. You know, I try to treat everybody equally. My favorite elder just passed, David Ace, Joe Nick and David just passed, and we took a couple road trips together, you know, to some ceremonies. And one of the things that I took from him was he told me his first 5 years of recovery was he was angry. And that was my problem. I was angry all the time. His elders told him if you wanted to treat everybody equally, you go ask the drum for help. And he was a huge, I think he sat on 13 drums, and he was going to ceremony every weekend. And he told me, you know, that drums told him, you know, to treat everybody equally. No matter how high they are, no matter how low they are, treat them equally. And I do that. You know, I ride around and I see people struggling in my neighborhood. I stop and talk to them. Hey, man, what's up, man? The other morning I bought a guy a meal. You know, they were trying to withdraw some money at the bank. He only had $1. You know, so I bought him some food. You know, that's okay. You know, that's, like Colin said, you know, it kind of stuck to me one time. He said, I wish there was more people like me when I was in active addiction. Outgoing, just open-minded, you know, non-judgmental. You know, it's the people like that I'm drawn to today. You know, because I know they put in a lot of hard work to get to those, to get that sense of state. You know, it's pretty good. You know, it's always an honor to get up here and share. You know, I just gotta say, man, if I can do it, man, y'all can do it. This is the best show on earth. You know, all you gotta do is show up, even if you're not feeling it. If you're feeling like you got to show up anyway. You know, even if you're not feeling it, that's when you need to be here the most. And you know what? I drag my ass to a meeting, even though I don't want it some days. You know, and I always leave every meeting feeling a little better. And I always love the meeting after the meeting. You know, I'm always out to go eat pie, some pizza. You know, and I'm always down to fellowship. And if you don't got no money, that's all right. I got you. Right? I don't know how many times I got you. Yeah. I got you. So, you know, that's all I try to do, because, you know, when I got here to be sure to Pizza Hut every Friday night, I didn't have the money. You know, and when I'd be sitting there reaching for my last $2 or something to help out, they'd be like, nah, take it, we got you. So when I got out, you know, when I got my job and started doing all right, started going to pizza, you know, I started going down. And it's just that give and take. You know, give and take. You know, so, you know, sponsorship, home group, you know, circle, you know, recovery people. You know, and if you're new, stay in the middle of the herd. You know, let them outside bulls and warriors protect you for a while. You know, accept their help. You know, I know it hurts. Because we're all filled with pride, we're all filled with ego when we get here. We know everything. You know? But the second we put that all away, the second I said that I'm an alcoholic, I surrendered, have I been able to grow. And I have been able to achieve much freedom from active addiction. Am I an alcoholic? Yeah, I still ride by some liquor stores, and I can still smell vodka. You know, it's just, I don't know. But it's weird too, because I was with a friend of mine, and we rode past that liquor store, we both happened to look at each other, and we both said that. Same thing, at the same time. I smell vodka. I don't know, man, it's that's just coincidence, or that it's major alcoholic addiction. You know? You know, but yeah, connection, the opposite of addiction, you know, with your higher power, peers, your home group, you know, these are all strongly suggested. They're not saying you have to, but, you know, because I don't like to control it. And, you know, my sponsor, I instruct my sponsor. I asked him to tell me what to do. And with his experience, I've been able to accumulate any clean time. I've never tried recovery before, guys. You know, I never knew it existed. You know, I never knew something that I could be part of something so pure. Drumming. I never used to sing. I used to love to sit up there and drum. Hey, you know, make them on stuff. But we were at a drum practice one night. And our lead singers didn't show up. So I was like, 1, 2, 3, go. You know, I just took off with it. And I started singing. I'm not the best singer, but I try like hell. You know, it's there for me. I started dancing this year. I bought some regalia. I stepped into the first ever arena at the last year's mass ball. And I was standing in line there getting ready, and I'm in the front of the line because I got to bustle, and I didn't know what to do. But there were some other people in recovery there that helped me out. They said, just follow me. And I did, and when I got up there and I was dancing, I had a club. Also, I was at an LCO big drum ceremony, for the veteran ceremony. And one of the elders, they offered me, they gifted me a club. And I didn't know it at the time, but my elder that I was there with, Joe Nickman, he said, man, you just got recognized as a warrior. I was like, wow, really? And I had to go dance with my club, man. I was happy as hell, man. I've never been recognized like that before, but, I brought it up to that dance arena, and I hung a couple feathers from it. And every time I started feeling lost, like I didn't know what to do, I just put that feather out in the front of me, and whatever way the feathers blew, that's the way I went. And it felt great. And I'm out there dancing, I'm just out there letting go. I'm crying a lot. I cry a lot when I dance. I do. I just get caught up in all my emotions. I got a lot of stuff I'm still working on. But I would be amazed. I'm amazed before I halfway through, because the promises that they talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous, they could come true. Especially our fear of economic insecurity will leave us. I'm broke as a joke. Happy. Happy and broke. It's just life has a new meaning. I love it today. I always said that I never would live off a machine. But somebody pointed out to me and they're like, hey, do you love your life today? And I'm like, yes. Well, why didn't you fight for another day? And that's what we do in recovery. I know sometimes we're right nothing, sometimes we're bowling, we're barely holding our heads above water. But if we can make it through that 24, we can make it those 24-hour miracles of hours, whatever it is worth it. The next day you will worry about that, when that hits you. That's all I got is today. And when I started practicing that principle, that's when the crabminess started going away. I wake up every day and say, all right, Creator, thank you. And then I'm out of bed. It wasn't always like that before, man. I just lay there, fuss around, and, it's good today. The little things. I'm releasing these pebbles one minute at a time. There's this guy who he was the biggest fan of early recovery, of our community, just trash talk everything that we were trying to do, and I held major resentments against this guy. And we were at the dance arena. We were dancing, we were both in the arena. And, like I said, I'm out there letting go. And I was thinking about how I was feeling about this guy, how it was making me sick. You get that unspoken silence between another human being. I don't like that. So what I did, I reached out, I had some bag of tobacco. And right in the arena, I walked up to him, put it in his hand, told him I loved him, and walked away. He came and approached me later on that night, and we talked. And I think I just made a friend today. It's always there, it's just somebody had to go first. And that's what we're doing in our communities. Somebody has to go first. Other people will follow. It's going to take some time. You're not going to clean up your res just like this. It takes a while for a community to heal, but I'm witnessing it in Mille. And if it can happen in Mille, it can happen here, it can happen everywhere. We just got to keep pushing. We're going to fail sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with fails. That's how we learn today. Every champion is, every swing's not going to be a home run. All the big league hitters, the ones with the most home runs, they got the most strikeouts too. But we don't see the strikeouts. We see what we're doing here today. And there are many people out there that just point out the strikeouts. Those people are making you stronger. Don't respond to them. I've had a few people that criticize me that aren't here no more. And I'm really grateful that I never lashed back. I don't have to worry about that amend no more. And I'm quick to make them. I got in an argument with my son's uncle the other day, and right when we were done, I got home, I called him. I said, I'm sorry, man. I don't like that feeling of that my spirituality disappearing no more. I try to do my best to be honest. open-minded, the how of the program, right? Honest, open-minded, and willing. You know, because I can't stay in that hole, in that prison that addiction had me in for so many years. You know, you gotta think outside the box. You know, I hear a lot of brothers, we were talking about this last night, you know, that say, I want native biased recovery. Cool. But you know, that guy shared a story with me one time and told me that his elders told him that, you know, our ceremonies and spirituality were enough for him to stay clean. If he wanted to stay clean, he had to go out and seek 2 white men. And they were talking about Bell and Bob and the AA program. And I know a lot of my great leaders all started off in some kind of program. So when I kind of judge myself that why I'm not so much more in my culture and everything, maybe I'm right where I need to be right now. You know, maybe I'm still learning about myself. Maybe I'm not ready for all that yet. You know, maybe I continue working with newcomers and learning stuff about me yet before I can do that. You know, because some years ago I was at a ceremony, Joe was up there speaking for the food or something like that, and somebody tapped me and said, "That's going to be you someday." Can you imagine that? One of those healers, but it is possible. You know, we got the gift of 2 lives. You know, we know what it was like and what it's like now. And, you know, normal people are deprived of that. You know, we can use that experience to become great people. I think some of the greatest people in the world are people that are in recovery, because recovery is the only disease where you can actually get better than you ever were before. That you can ever, I'm going to swear up, but that you can ever frickin' imagine. You know, there's things in this life that just come together. Your dreams come alive. You know, I got friends that are buying houses. You know, instead of a little pair of shoes, that's not gold. You know, they're buying houses today. They're getting their master's degrees. They're putting in the work. They're putting in the work. You know, and it's available to us all. Everybody can do it. You know, we just got to get out of that head. You know, we got to get out of this. And, you know, like I was talking about, you know, when you only want to get clean with, like your other sisters, brother, relatives, man, you're putting yourself in that prison still. There's a lot more out there, man. I had some white people sold me an RV last year for $1. Just so I can travel around with my dialysis equipment and continue to recover. You don't hear of favors like that. You know, it only lasted 4 trips and broke down now, but, you know, it lasted. I made it, you know. It's a beast. Straight up red. Yeah, it is nice though, man. It's just things like that, you know, that you don't take for granted. You know, and it's never ending, you know. This program goes on and on. There's all kinds of programs, all kinds of camp outs that are starting to go on. There's a How camp out next weekend, right over there in Battle Lake, right across the way. And there's all kinds of them popping up. There's one in Malacca. There's, you know, I plan on hitting them all, but, you know, I'm going to see how it works. I'm starting a new job here soon. Working with the local halfway house. This is a part-time gig, so, you know, it'd be all right to sit back and talk with the guys at night. You know, it's not work if you really enjoy what you're doing. You know, I think when I went to go work down at the Native Men's House down in St. Paul a few years ago, I wasn't ready yet. There's a thing called I care too much. I get a little too close, and I get let down. You know, when people fail. And, you know, it took me a while to realize that I'm not responsible for my, I'm not responsible for my disease, but something like that, you know, but I'm not responsible for others also. Addiction is a killer. I've died 3 times. And I'm grateful for fentanyl. I was a heavy drinker for over 30 years. Started off when I was about 10. Quit when I was about 42. I turned to meth when I was about 35, because I used to let me drink for days, you know. Then I turned all about the assaults, all that crap. But it was fentanyl that hit the scene one week, and it put me on my ass 3 times in a row. That still wasn't enough to make me quit. You know, I was all proud of it. You know, I was bringing over other heroin dealers like, try this stuff, and they'd all folded on the couch. It was ugly. I used to play cards with them when I was on meth. You know, they'd always be on heroin, knocking off. I'd always win. Then I had to run away with all the money, you know. But, you know, it was 3 times that week, in the week, that got me. And that's when I kind of realized, like, man, you can't die. You know, I didn't want to try it anymore, but that's when I decided to try to live. And, you know, without the help of many, many people that walked into my path at the right time, have I been able to be sitting here today. You know, meeting people like Jason and meeting people like all of you. I say, grandma out there. I love it. You know, the mixture, because, you know, the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate. You know, I know we turn to it, you know, for a temporary feeling of goodness, and that's how it starts, but eventually it will take everything from you. Friends, family, your life. Give this a shot. You know, go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I'll tell you what, if you don't like the results, all that pain and suffering is still there waiting for you. It ain't going nowhere. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a break. It's worth it. You know, it's going to be tough. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it does get easier as you go down the road. You know, we start to be dealing with good people. We start to walk in a good way. We start to live the Mille. But my business, there, I said it. I was having trouble saying that word. But my business, there we go. Yeah, it's good. The good life, man. It's available to us all. You know, it starts with prayer. Starts with asking for help, starts with surrender, and, you know, for me, that's me surrendering the outcome. You know, I don't have to be in control of everything anymore. You know, even if somebody's speaking and I already know the answer, I let them finish. You know, I become more patient, hold myself accountable, and I learn to accept people for exactly who they are. And I get that from this serenity prayer. You know, the courage to change the only things I can, that's me. I can't change them. I don't fix people. You know, all I can do is share my experience, strength, and hope with you, and hopefully it can benefit you in some way. Let all my pain and suffering be so you don't have to. You know, I've gone through it for you. That's my experience, strength, and hope for you, man. I hope I reach somebody. I'm honored to be sitting up here tonight, and I hope everybody has a great weekend and safe travels home tomorrow. Anybody celebrating some clean time, we all have today. Good job. Thank you, everybody, for being here, shooting up and showing for my recovery and allowing me to